My name is Gary Johnson. Today I reach out to you, members of all political parties. I reach out to everyone with a vote and an axe to grind. From the Tea Party, the Constitution Party, the Green and Libertarian parties. I call out to all of you, including the disaffected and disillusioned among the Republicans and Democrats. Today there's a handful of people in Washington ruining America for 330 million of us. They've kept our nation in a state of perpetual war and increasing unsustainable debt. This small group has presided over the elimination of our Bill of Rights and the systematic dismantling of our freedoms guaranteed us under our Constitution. It is them we should be fighting, not each other. We the people will never agree on the small things, but let's agree on the big thing. Our leaders have blown it. If we don't get control of this ship together and fix it together, we all go down with it together. I ask you to join me in trying something that's never been attempted before in America. Let's put our parties and our differences aside one time. Be libertarian with me for one election. Together, we'll stop the spending and end the wars. Together, we'll rebuild our own roads, bridges, schools, and hospitals instead of building theirs half a world away. Together, we'll restore our industrial might and our economy.
Tonight, Bob Petricci of Puna Pono Alliance talks about the state takeover of Hawaii County for industrialization and the reasons behind it, and a special in-depth comparison of the top three presidential candidates, Obama, Romney, and Johnson. But first,
in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
Aloha mai kako, you are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
All right, from LP.org, the Libertarian Party, the party of principle. Finally, a stark look at all three presidential candidates. Disclosure, I am a libertarian, and my three top reasons and issues for this program are protecting innocent life, which means minimizing or eliminating, better yet, wars of aggression, which means protecting civil liberties. And no, I do not just mean the gay marriage and such as that. I mean the actual right to own property without it being encumbered or taken or stolen when there is no harm being done to anybody else, which means having the right to do what I want with the internet as I please, as long as it's not harming anybody else, which means the right to not be killed or detained indefinitely by the whim of some person, as it is in the NDAA allowed, etc. So there you go. That's my bias, and I freely declare it. So now let's take a look at the issues that the LP outlines here, and I'll give a little bit of background on them, and I think if you're more interested, I'll have some more in-depth coverage also. So let's take a look at the first one, balancing the budget. Well, Gary Johnson says now, Obama and Romney in 10 years plus. What does this mean to us in practical terms? Higher interest, like a farm eating the seeds now we will need to plant for later. What this means is that money we're spending on the debt that we keep incurring, or the deficit I should actually say, and the debt, is going to just keep eating away at our future, and we are paying it. We're slaves to the debt. It's kicking the can down the road. It's not dealing with the problems. If we would deal with this, if we would cut the things now, it would make us face the problems instead of sweeping them under the rug. Yes, it's going to be difficult. There's no denying it. It's going to be much worse if we don't deal with it. It's just a matter of total collapse or controlled reformulation. I should just say that. So it makes us face the problems. It's the only way to actually grow the economy. When you have a large debt eating away, and this is where, I am certainly not a Marxist, but I do agree with this analysis, okay, and breakdown of capitalism being divided into productive versus financial capitalism. The productive capitalism is going to be sucked away by this financial capitalism paying the debt. And this is a large part of the problem that's happening to our country as we pay these financiers to sit there and get wealthy instead of employing the capital to do productive things and employ people. And to even, yes, pay taxes back to our, governing body so they can hopefully spend them wisely, unlike they are doing now. This is the only way to save Medicare. It is the truth. You know, nobody wants to hear it. It leads to money printing, a serious inflation. If we do not deal with this imbalance the budget and deal with the federal spending, we're going to have, you know, look at the gas price since Obama came in. It's more than doubled. Whereas with silver, if you had silver holding the true value, because the reason it has doubled is because we've been printing. It's not necessarily a supply and demand issue. In fact, I mean, I'll bet you if we looked, we're probably having slightly less demand now than it was, you know, before the big rise started to happen. The real issue is that we are printing so many dollars that the value of the dollar is going down. And as the petroleum is priced in petrodollars, if you've seen our special in the past, why we're at war, to basically defend the petrodollar, you would understand that, you know, since the dollars are being printed, you're going to have to, so many of them, each value is being diluted. Thus, we got to have to give more to come back to parity where we were. And with silver, okay, actually, right now you're buying more gallons than when we started because its value is going up because the currency is going down. So the main thing, I think, above all, if you study history, we will avoid the ruin similar to other empires. This is the killer. Wars and budget problems kill and destroy empires and everybody in them, or certainly bring their life to misery. And we are on that path. Federal spending, we're going to say that Johnson will reduce that 43%. Why is that? Because that is our budget deficit. You know, we're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar we spend now. So, you know, he just wants to bring it back. So we're certainly not, you know, spending more than we have, which seems pretty reasonable with a little common sense, especially over the long term. And we've been doing this for years. This is a problem way before Obama. It's a problem that has to do with Bush. It goes back through Clinton. Clinton did not balance the budget if you look carefully. It goes back, and this is not a partisan issue. They've both been horrible, both sides. This really goes back actually to Eisenhower's time. And I loved Eisenhower. I loved Kennedy. Okay, those are the two decent last presidents I think we've had, but it was going on even then, and it's been going on for decades, and we have got a serious problem. Okay, moving on to bailouts. No, increasing government debt. Okay, well, this one's fairly simple. Zero increase of debt with Gary Johnson. I mean, you know, hey, let's face it, between the debt and the liabilities, each individual, according to debtclock.org, now has over $1.2 million in debt. This is each taxpayer has got $1.2 million of government debt. Gee, I think we're all going to pay that back real readily. I don't know if a lot of us are going to make $1.2 million in our whole lifetime total. So, I mean, talk about indentured servitude or slavery. I mean, this is what is essentially going to be hoisted upon us unless they default, which is possible, or unless they print money, which is likely. Thus, again, we'll be taking, like Germany, wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread. This is probably what's coming over time. So, okay, going and looking at bailouts. Well, this is one I really particularly enjoy seeing here because I get comments every so often. In fact, I've had it on the website that, you know, the Libertarians and Gary Johnson are corporate bankster cronies. Oh, yes, that's such the case. That's why we have, you know, we're getting virtually none. Well, sometime go look it up on opensecrets.org. And it's also why we're doing all the bailouts. Yes, we're supporting them. They're going to kick it back to us. We're all for the big banks. No, no, no. We're for the people. We are for the people. We're for the entrepreneurs. We're for the honest working people who produce in this country and make jobs. This is why we do not want bailouts, because not only is it morally wrong to steal from the poor and the middle class and give to the rich, it's also not enforcing market discipline. You know, markets have a good point. Yes, they're, you know, I'm not trying to say it's easy. It's very difficult. But that's the good about them. They enforce companies and individuals to make choices that are smarter, to evolve, to not make mistakes, to be productive with their time, their capital, and their people. That's the good of them. And if you don't want that, then we're not going to have progress. We have to progress by learning and evolving. Okay, moving on. Again, all my opinions, you're certainly welcome to counter them, and I'd love to hear it, you know. So, Federal Reserve, only one says abolish the Fed. Now, the Federal Reserve is the biggest corporate entity going. It has nothing to do with federal. It's owned by 6 private banks. It is the ultimate Uber mafia of the world, especially in this country, but really controlling the whole world now, directly or indirectly. And here we are again. The Libertarians are corporatists, big, horrible corporatists. Well, guess who supports the largest corporate controlling faction and master ever in existence.
Republicans and Democrats are both in the pocket of the financial community. The top 12 contributors to Obama's campaign are the top 12 banks. 5 of the 6 top contributors to Romney's campaign are the big banks.
Moving on to, we skipped the Patriot Act and NDAA. Excuse me, let's go back. Repeal. Libertarian Gary Johnson, repeal. The other ones, renew and expand. What does that mean? That means you and I have 0 rights. That means we have something that even a king, very few kings could even do. They can simply sign an order, say, kill him, deport him, take him away. We don't even get a trial. We don't have no review. There's no judicial review, nothing. Just whisk and disappear. Well, a lot of people may say, okay, well, how does that affect me? I'm honest, that. Well, first off, let's look at this a little bit. The rule of law must be followed. If not, it's a slippery slope indeed. What is the point of having the law if it is not followed? The Constitution does not allow this. Bingo, end of story really right there, okay? But now we're getting into warrantless wiretapping, indefinite arrest and detention, the killing of U.S. citizens determined solely by one man, no judges, no evidence. Even most kings, again, had more checks on them than this. Now it is terrorists. Soon it could be any type of resistance. Pro-life? We don't like that. Tea Party? Even if they don't take you, they can be threatening you because you can be arrested as a terrorist. Hey, those Tea Partiers, those occupiers, terrorists. PLDC protesters? Scoff if you wish, but the law enables this. What happens if you do have some wealth or knowledge the government wants? Is this a great way to blackmail you or take it? Think about it. It is proven throughout history that, let's say even the very top of the machine was totally innocent and good and trying to serve the people. You don't think somewhere in those thousands of bureaucrats there isn't somebody who could manipulate the system for their benefit? I mean, look at history. This has been done so many times before. And, it's been probably done recently. I mean, Libya was probably all about stealing the gold, the tons and tons and tons of gold that Gaddafi had, which is, by the way, missing now. I wonder who has that gold. I wonder who has that. Okay, anyways, internet freedoms are under severe attack. The control of information and loss of the media share to their corporate supporters does not sit well with the duopoly. I mean, if we have free, information coming from citizen to citizen instead of the official filter, this is very dangerous to a regime. Very, very, very dangerous. I mean, the truth may get out. Okay, moving on to medical insurance. Okay, the medical insurance mandate. The only one really dealing with the problem instead of pushing a false front that will fail with, 3.5 times the expenditures to income.
Well, first of all, Medicare is a program that we're all contributing $30 to, and we're getting a $100 benefit. By extension, we're contributing $30,000 to a benefit that we're getting a $100,000 benefit from. That is absolutely unsustainable. And so when you have a debate over who's going to spend more for Medicare, we need to have a raging debate and discussion in this country on how we cut Medicare and still provide a safety net for those over 65. If we don't do it, no health care for anybody because we find ourselves with a collapsed government due to monetary policy.
And the largest item on the budget, Romney and Gingrich, the conservatives, are the modern implementation of this from Teddy Roosevelt. So there is no difference, really, between Obama and Republican Mitt Romney. And we all know, and I think even those of you who would vote for him would have to say, he certainly hasn't been immovable in his stances. Let's put it in an extremely nice way. This is going to be difficult for him to deal with, and he is, him and Gingrich, the quote-unquote conservatives, are the ones who really brought this whole thing to forth, and Obama latched on. I personally despise this law for many reasons. I understand what the thought is behind it. It's a nice thought. It's just practical reality. It doesn't work for many ways. But I will give him one thing, and I will give one thing, to Obama. This is an issue that has to be dealt with. At least they kind of tried, even though in all the wrong way. But repealing this, I believe, would be the best thing that could ever happen because it will force us to deal with the issue. This Obamacare is going to be such an albatross. I'm not even looking at and talking about this ideologically. I'm just looking at this purely pragmatically. We are not addressing the fundamental issues, and there are some people. We have one here in Hawaii. I forgot her name. She's a legislature on a real nice gal on Oahu. We have a lot of diabetes here. We have a lot of health problems, myself included. We could be eating better, doing better for our health. We're not dealing with this. We are just simply putting it all into a system that is overloaded and literally sinking us financially. Okay, moving on to guns. Well, we have Gary Johnson, pro-gun rights, Obama obviously anti-gun, and Romney truly anti-gun too. He flip-flops, but there's no doubt with a libertarian. And if you look at the records, you'll see Gary Johnson is by far and away the best on this one. The war in Afghanistan. Oh, the war that everybody easily wins. It costs nothing, and has great purpose for being there. Well, guess what? Even Alexander had a hard time, and nobody's really done well there. Nobody, even if they quote-unquote win, it doesn't last for long. This has been going on for over 2,000 years. We're trying to control this area. It's only going to bleed us dry in many ways and enrich the involved parties in the area while we do their dirty work and trying to control it. Why don't we let India, Iran, Pakistan, let them have at it? I mean, they'll get to it better than we can. I mean, it's really their problem. It's their backyard. It's not ours. There's no legitimate purpose for us to be there now. Osama bin Laden is supposedly been had. We are only rebuilding their country and killing our boys and gals, putting them in harm's way instead of doing what we could be doing to help and improve this country. This is an incredibly stupid war on all fronts. Even if you thought it was necessary and good, come on, it's not being won. It's impractical. This is ridiculous.
That this war is unjustified, that everyone that we blamed for 9/11 is either dead or in jail, and that the people that are still suffering every day is for nothing. The lives that we lose from suicide, from the enemy, the suffering on both sides. There's no reason that our brothers and sisters should die in the sand. There's no reason that their children should go to bed terrified every night at the next drone strike or the next boot coming through the door. This war is not justified. There's no reason for it.
Okay, talking to Iran. Okay, we have, first off, without getting into that, and I have been raised, and I know a lot of Iranian people. They typically call themselves Persian because they don't want to be called Iranian, but they're very smart people. A lot of people may know that eBay was made by an Iranian American, and the founder, very smart people, and their country is very proud, and it's also a growing country. Now, if you understand that they have been invaded by the U.S. and their government overthrown before, they're surrounded on 5 of 6 fronts by American troops that were trying to destroy their right and ability to, and this is not a defense of their government, because like all governments, there's plenty of that could be made better in that government. And it's not a defense of Ahmadinejad, okay? What I'm really simply looking at, and by the way, I should have said from the beginning, I truly usually look at the big macro and fundamentals. The little issues are irrelevant to me. I'm really looking at the big things here, and I don't want to get into the nitpicking, because what really counts to me are the fundamentals, and that's what's going to destroy or make this country, not the little personality traits and, who's a little bit better on this relatively minor or even secondary issue. What I'm concerned about are the fundamentals, okay? And getting into a war with Iran is not going to be smart at all. It's really not, because Russia is going to get into that war. You just look and see carefully what's happening, because they know then if we get Iran under control, Russia has a gigantic, and China too. So we are truly looking and going for World War III. And then everybody may say, well, the nuclear weapons. Hey, I don't like them. I don't like them. Okay? But if you look at what we did to Gaddafi, you might see their reasoning behind it. There are ways to get around this without having to get into war. By the way, you warhawks, sending drones in, okay, and doing things that we don't need to do, we've only weakened ourselves. Now they have our technology. Now they know what we can do. And they literally have, our machines in some cases. And this is not wise. Now when we really need them, we won't have the element of surprise, and we've given it away. We're way off. We're killing innocent people. We're not serving our interests. This is about oil and power and banks and control. And this is what it's about. And we could get into that other issues. Please look at this carefully. We're making a lot more enemies than friends here. It's not going to be good for us in the long term at all. We are only a small percentage of the population on this earth. We cannot control and dominate the whole earth. It is not going to happen. It's just not realistic. So I think we better get a little wiser and start looking at other alternatives. 500,000 U.S. troops, okay? That's what Gary Johnson says, bring them home. And Obama and the other duopolistic puppet basically say, keep them there in 130 plus countries. Keep the U.S. military there. Okay, actually Gary says bring home 250,000 troops, so bring in about half of them. which would probably be reasonable to allow the other forces, the other countries to begin defending themselves as a transition period. Military spending reduced 43%, so in other words, he's willing to cut the same proportion as everything else, which is realistic. Same-sex marriage. I think this has been a gigantic problem for Johnson. My comments here, this has been a difficult issue for a lot of people, especially older people, to deal with. I'm certainly not endorsing any lifestyle or anything like that. It's just simple. This is in the Constitution. It is coming. It's not going to be resisted. Conservatives, this is not going to be resisted. And I know for a fact, I talk to older people, they won't say it directly, but I know this is one of the big problems against Gary Johnson in securing their votes. If this was just a moot point, I mean, if everybody was equal, this was done with, we'd all be moving on, and that's the end of it. So please, conservatives, consider that. I mean, it's just not going to be denied. And even if it is, I mean, come on. Frankly, there are a lot of people out there, you just can't judge them. You don't know what their situation is. You don't know what it's just, why not leave them to their own happiness if they're not disturbing you? I mean, you don't have to endorse it. You don't have to like it, but it's just in the Constitution, and in a practical matter, it makes a lot of sense. Like Christ said, let he without sin cast the first stone. Okay? Let's go to marijuana. Well, this is another one. This is one that's really, I've never smoked it. I don't really like it, from the people around, because I see that it takes their brain cells slowly. But this is, the hemp and the related, they're truly miracle plants. I mean, we could be almost fuel independent with, a weed that you can, literally a weed that you can press for oil and do many good things with. And here we are, encumbering ourselves and putting polluting, expensive foreign products. It's ridiculous. This needs to end. So many innocent people are being hurt by this. They're not out hurting you. Most of the people, certainly the ones I've come across here in Hawaii, they're just old hippies. You just cannot play God and cop. I mean, what do you want to be? Big Brother, literally 1984 with a camera on everybody? And if so, isn't it hypocritical if you're letting alcohol and the legalized drug industry go? There are so many drugs that the doctor can give you that are much worse than these. It's just a failed war. It's bringing on incredible crime and corruption in our land. I highly suggest we start to look to legalizing this and being done with it. There's much more important things to be dealt with, such as the top of this list, and life and liberty.
My name is Steve Downing. I'm a retired Deputy Chief of Police from the Los Angeles Police Department. And I said, he is really dead, and his family is without a husband and a father because he's trying to stop an addict from getting some dope. He's not trying to stop a bank robbery. He's not trying to stop a rapist. You don't see Coors and Budweiser distributors shooting it out on the street. That's because alcohol is regulated and controlled and taxed. I would legalize, regulate, and control all drugs without incarceration. There would be a significant reduction in the prison population across this country. Families would be allowed to stay together, and this country would save probably $1 trillion over the next 25 years.
Okay, campaign donors. But there's no doubt Gary Johnson, it's individuals, and for the Republican and Democrat, it is large corporate and special interests. The Libertarians are for the people. We are not big business, even though some big business may be there, and who cares if they are, if it's honest. But we're not large corporations getting loophole laws written for them, buying off lawmakers. This is one of the People's Party. I personally think they're the most balanced at this point, focusing on what I said from the beginning I believe are the most fundamental issues: life, liberty, basically the pursuit of happiness. My opinion. I hope it was useful to you. Please let me know if there's anything I should add or I'm wrong. I'm always open. Thank you for listening. Aloha. God bless.
My name is Robert Petricci. I'm with the Puna Pono Alliance, and we're actually, the purpose of our group is to try to put forward the best energy future for Hawaii. In Hawaii right now, we have the highest electric rates in the United States, and we're controlled by an energy monopoly. And that's one of the reasons why our rates are so high. And so they keep putting forward different ideas of centralized power. And centralized power is really an 18th century technology of You produce power in one place and you ship it all around the islands, transport the power, and it's very expensive. It's basically nailing a wire to a tree like they did in the 18th century. Now we're in the 21st century, and it's time that we leave that. Centralized power was good, and it's been good. We've made a lot of progress, but it's time now to move into the 21st century, which is decentralized power. You produce the power where you use the power. And, there's a lot of special interests that are involved in politics. We got the elections coming up, and we look at how much money it takes for a politician to get elected. The mayor of Hawaii County, $1 million. The president of the United States, $1.25 billion. You can't run for these offices if you don't have this corporate backing. So what happens is those corporate interests are who they represent, because they're not going to get that money if they don't represent that. So Puna Pono Alliance really wants to push that kind of aside and just move to what is the best power sources for Hawaii, because our economy depends on having affordable and reliable electricity, and so that's what we're working on. And we get labeled and tied into geothermal a lot because that's the big issue right now, is geothermal power. We think geothermal power is just a way to extend this monopoly. It's very expensive, and so we prefer to look at alternatives to that. And the one that's most attractive to us is solar power. Solar power has dropped 80% in the last few years, 4 or 5 years, in cost, and it's projected over the next 5 years to drop up to 90% more. Solar panels are going to be so cheap that geothermal, oil, and a lot of these other technologies can't compete. And then a lot of people will argue that, well, solar is not base load power. You can only use solar during the day when the sun's out. And what happens now, though, as the solar panels become so cheap, we can use them during the day to produce hydrogen, to do other things, to store that power in pump storage. There's a lot of different things. Because it's so cheap and clean, solar really is the answer to Hawaii's energy future. So, what's going on here with geothermal is what we see is the state has developed a model in Honolulu that's not sustainable. They can't produce their own power. They can't produce their own food. They've developed something that is not sustainable. So now they're coming to the outer islands, to the Big Island in particular, for their resources. They want us to be the battery for Honolulu, or the extension cord, if you will. They want to run an extension cord from the Big Island so they can now use our resources. And, but they're not giving us any home rule. They're dictating to us. They come and they make these decisions in Honolulu. They don't come into the communities and talk to us about what they want to do. Puna Pono Alliance really is about home rule. We really push, and we think these decisions need to be made at a county level. Of course, we want to help Honolulu if we can, but we want to help them by showing them the errors of their ways. I mean, they've done all these developments, they've done this unsustainable stuff, and now they want to tell us how to develop the Big Island. What we want them to do is look at us and say, look, we have a sustainable model. The community I live in, we don't have power lines. Thousands of us. We've been on solar for 10 years. We grow our own food. We're sustainable. What do? They want to come into Puna and build industries. They want to industrialize and push us out while claiming that they want to be sustainable, that geothermal, the reason they're doing this is to be sustainable. So we think, and the opposite should be, they should come to us and let us show them how to do. They should give us some of the money. We need a revolving loan account. They give millions and millions of dollars to geothermal exploration, all this. We have no help whatsoever. We've done this all by ourselves. Give us a revolving loan account so we can have the upfront costs to put solar systems in, and we could be off of oil in 5 years. We could show them how to get off oil. The problem is that it's not a monopoly. They're not going to be able to corporatize it and make the kind of money, and that's what it's really about. We pay the highest rates in the United States, and they don't want to give that up. This is energy policy in Hawaii is around a corporate model based on making as much money as you can, not what is the best future and what is the best for the people of Hawaii.
There's no more federal than Federal Express.
You try a hide and destroy a freedom. You seek agenda, we know you enter. American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913, corrupt in the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lucifer. He can see you lying.